Hello, I'm Matthew Gomez, and today I'll be explaining my presentation topic about doom tourism and the topic of defending the doomed tourist spots as my title. The ice caps of Mount Kilimanjaro, the sinking city of Venice, Italy, and the Galapagos Islands of Ecuador, these are all endangered tourist spots or doomed tourist spots that are quite popular and a target for tourists because they might soon change or disappear without knowing that they are contributing to the cause. As we know, most of these doomed tourist spots are endangered because of climate change and environmental factors, yet we continue to visit them. For example, SAFTI 2024 stated that in the sinking city of Venice, climate change could cause Venice to be nearly 4 feet underwater by the end of the century. This is just one of the many problems. Before moving on, I would like to explain a few relevant terms that we might see within this presentation. For the first relevant term, it is doom tourism. According to Dorn and Kim 2023, doom tourism is a travel trend based on the temporality of vanishing tourism resources, whereby tourists seek to experience them before they have irreversibly changed or disappeared entirely. This is the main topic of my presentation. The next is climate change. According to Remote Energy 2024, significant and last climate change are significant and lasting changes in the Earth's temperature and weather patterns. These changes can be from natural causes such as large volcanic activity or from human activities. Now that I have explained these relevant terms, I'm going to be moving on to my thesis. My thesis is by speeding up the effects of environmental factors and climate change, each visit to these doomed tourist spots contributes to the changes, degradation, and disappearance of them. Now, I'll be explaining some examples of doomed tourism. But while I'm explaining them, I want you to think, are you contributing to doomed tourism? So we have these two examples, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa, and St. Mark's Square in Venice, Italy. Now, some might see these and agree with doomed tourism because if it's already bound to change, why not get ahead of it and view it before this change happens? I mean, these are pretty nice places. But let me ask you a question. Instead of giving up and letting that happen, why don't we attempt to change the outcome? Why not preserve or protect these places instead of promoting further degradation of them? I want to use Mount Kilimanjaro as an example. Mount Kilimanjaro is a place known for its ice glaciers, but that'll soon change. According to Mount Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro's ice sheets have shrunk by more than 85% since 1912, which is a result of climate change and global warming. They also claim that by 2050, the last ice glaciers, including the ones on Mount Kilimanjaro, will be melted. Climate change and global warming will continue to affect Mount Kilimanjaro and other doomed tourist spots if no change occurs in how these places are handled. Now, some people might argue that doomed tourism has some benefits like revenue, eco-friendly alternatives, and attention. Let me explain these for you. For revenue, doomed tourism can bring in revenue for the local government or overall government and fund research to find the way to save these tourist spots. We can also use eco-friendly alternatives for doomed tourism so that can be used in transportation to combat carbon footprints left by tourists. People can use eco-friendly alternatives to justify the continued use of doomed tourism. Lastly is attention. We can bring attention to organization, netizens, and spread awareness to others to help find a solution. I agree with most of these points that they can bring benefits or something good to because of doomed tourism and cause a great change to doomed tourism. But let me explain my rebuttals. My rebuttals for doomed tourism is that for carbon footprint, yes, it can be reduced with eco-friendly alternatives, but this does not account for other issues or actions done by tourists. such as air pollution from smoking, land pollution from littering, and much more. If left unchecked, there would be no change. Another one is for the ecosystem and attention. Ecosystem, it can lead to consequences. Doom tourism can lead to consequences in the ecosystem, like increased pollution, soil erosion, and many more. Also, if the attention brought did not bring any actions or attempts to help the ecosystem and the tourist spot, the attention that was brought would have no value. Another rebuttal I have is that it is demeaning to locals. While the opportunity and income will be useful to the locals, the locals can be offended by people visiting their home and accelerating the process of change. It can also be offensive to them as you are there just to see the spot and not for another reason such as their culture or trying to help these spots. Another point people would argue is that why is doom tourism worse than regular tourism? How does going to these specific locations have more of an effect than traveling regularly to somewhere else? And this makes an excellent point. Even I was confused at first when I was thinking about how this type of tourism is worse when it's the same process no matter where people go. After researching, I was informed that some places are more vulnerable than the rest. An example stated by Doran and Kim 2023 is the polar regions, which are more vulnerable than other places to the effects of climate change. Because these places are more prone to change, the effects of tourism on the environment and our climate can affect them much more than regular tourist spots, like, let's say, for example, the Statue of Liberty in New York. Now, people might be wondering how tourism exactly affects these spots. So, we need to remember at its core, doom tourism is still tourism. Tourism alone is very harmful when unmonitored and uncontrolled. Uncontrolled, according to Psycho or CIPCO 2024, uncontrolled tourism can lead to many consequences in the ecosystem, like I stated earlier. Climate change and its effects will then lead to degradation and change of these locations. To make it easier to understand, I'll connect the dots for us. While every tourist spot receives negative climate change and environmental effects from tourism, doom tourism spots are more vulnerable or prone to change from the effects. For example, the polar regions may receive worse effects than an island in Japan because it is more vulnerable to the effects than the island. Since it is more prone to change, doomed tourist spots that are already experiencing the effects of environmental factors and climate change get it much faster now when people visit the spots because of how tourism affects them. Now, for the conclusion. Though doomed tourism has some solutions and benefits, it does not outweigh the damages caused or the damages that have already been done. Vulnerability is what makes the traveling to these doomed tourist spots or endangered tourist spots much worse. They are more susceptible to the effects and can accelerate the change and disappearance of these tourist spots. If attempts are not taken to stop visiting these highly vulnerable places, and actions are not taken to protect and preserve these places, doomed tourism will continue to lead to the changes and disappearances of these locations. Now, considering this, will you do your part to help protect and preserve these doomed tourist spots? I want you to think about that for a while. And that is the end of my presentation. These are the references I used in helping me make this presentation.